Hey guys, I'm going to start shooting some videos on just regular maintenance on the Ohvale bikes. So the first one up here is going to be just a regular oil change. So I hope you enjoy it, hope you learn something, and comment below if you want to see a video of me doing a specific service or maintenance on the bike. Let me know. You guys will notice there's some silicone on here. I've done a couple races on the bike, and instead of safety wiring it, they let me just silicone the bolts so they don't come loose. But for the oil, I dropped this exhaust bolt here. It lets the pipe come down. This to 10 mil on there. Now you can see there's some flex in the pipe, the exhaust here, to where I get enough room to get the oil plug out. Oil plugs is 17 mil. Woo! Tight one. So you can see, I don't know if you can see, but the plug actually hits the pipe. So that's why I loosened up the back on the muffler, and then right here, and then you can just pull the pipe down and the plug comes right out. So I'll let that drain. While it's draining, I'll grab an 8 mil socket to pull these out so I can get access to the oil filter. Careful you don't drop these in the pan. And then some oil is obviously going to come out of here as well when you pull the cover off. This filter usually comes out pretty easily. Ooh. You can see mine, it's pretty crushed. It's working hard in there. So I got a new one right here. Before I put that in, I'm going to, there's a spring in there. I'm going to clean out all the old oil in there just with a paper towel. Just to make sure there's no sediment left in there. It's pretty easy. I usually like to wipe down the outside here, because when you're putting on the cover again, you don't want any dust to get back in there. So just as it came off, I'll wipe off the spring, and there's a little knob in there that the spring goes on to. Just stick that there. And then same way the old filter came off. These little prongs go in over the spring, and that little rubber thing is for the back of the cap. So I'll push this in over the spring. There it is. And then I'll wipe this down again to get the old oil out of here. And then don't get too crazy. You can see there's still some oil left on here. The O-ring's always got to be oiled. So even if it's new oil or old oil, keep oil on there. And then this is just going to go back the way it was. Like to walk them both in at the same time. Make sure you don't pinch the O-ring. And then these are not crazy tight, so just hand tight, a little more than hand tight. That's it. Clean off around the oil fill, because that's what we're going to be doing next. You don't want to get any dirt in there when you take the cap off or when you're pouring the oil in. Again, there's the silicone from racing. And we can see you got a real slow drip. So I will take the oil plug, clean it off, get all the dirt, debris, silicone off of it from the race. That's clean. Wipe off the area where it's going in, where it's dripping from. Wipe off the pipe because it's dripping onto it. And then stick it right back in. You have to pull the pipe down a little bit again to get the plug in there. And then, because it's still dripping oil slowly, I like to just get it so the threads are started and then dry everything off. And then walk the bolt all the way in. Okay, then you take your 17 mil, tighten her back up. Probably don't go as tight as I had it because it doesn't have to be that tight. Okay. That's it for that. We drain the oil. So I'm going to put this bolt back in, tie up the exhaust again, and then everything will be done except for putting oil in. Alright guys, so when I shot that video was the other day and my camera battery died, so I didn't get to finish putting in the oil and kind of giving my notes. So a couple things just to cover. Right before you start the oil change, it's good to actually run the bike for 5 minutes, just enough so like the side covers get warm. You don't want the exhaust to be super hot because obviously you're going to be handling it. So just enough to get the oil warm and kind of it gets less viscous and more watery, which helps it drain out more. So that's one tip that I missed in the beginning of the video. And then another thing is I didn't get to show putting in the oil. So I'm going to kind of go over that with you right now. Okay, so you could see the bike's obviously back together. Of course, the oil goes in the fill cap, so make sure your plug's on tight on the bottom. You don't have to put all the body work on yet. But so the plug's out, the oil's been drained. So you'll take this top cap off. It has the dipstick on it. And then there's the sight gauge for the oil right here. You can kind of see there's an oil bubble that starts at the top of my finger now. So about 1/8 of an inch or about 3 millimeters. So I use the Motul 300V 10W40. So I pour it in and I watch the sight gauge. I don't pay any attention to the liters or the quarts or whatever. I just go until that bubble is visible. You can kind of see it again here. So once the oil gets a little over 3/4 of the way full, I stop, I cap it back up, I start the motor, let it run for about 5 minutes, turn it off, and then once it's off, when I started it, it cycles it through, pumps it back up to the oil cooler in the front and back down, cycles it through, and then I recheck the bubble. And ideally, I want to put it right back to here where it was, which you can see has the bubble in there, and that's the perfect amount of oil for the motor. So like I said, I've said it before, the manual calls a specific liter or quart amount that goes in the bike, and I don't know, but I've seen so many people overfill the oil in these bikes that I don't even know what it says. I stopped listening to it. So with that being said, I literally just go by the sight gauge, and once it hits that 3/4 through that bubble, and or 3/4 through that sight glass, and there's a little bubble at the top, that's the perfect amount, and you're good to go. Just a side note is I change my oil every 5 hours. These are little Chinese and Japanese motors, depending on what version you have, and you're running it full throttle, so changing the oil more regularly would not hurt, but I think 5 hours is a good gauge to keep the motors strong and lasting. So I hope you guys learned something. Again, like I said in the beginning, if you have any maintenance on the bike, or you're looking to get a bike and you want to see how something is done maintenance-wise, leave a comment below, and I will either address it in the next couple weeks here, or I can just reply back in the comments. So thanks for watching, and if you can, subscribe.